So, got another engine on the bench. This is a 2006 Toyota RAV4 3.5 liter. So, brought the vehicle in and had water in the oil. And so we figured it had a blown head gasket. We pulled all the spark plugs and it was hydro locked. We tried to turn it over. It still wouldn't turn over with all the spark plugs pulled. So we decided to pull it out of the vehicle. So actually we quoted the customer. I called O'Reilly's and got a quote. It was like $3,000 or something for an engine. And so quoted the customer out based on an O'Reilly engine and an AutoZone engine. I usually never go with AutoZone. So they approved the repair, which is replacing the engine. And I called O'Reilly back to order the engine. They said, oh, well, we can't get that. So they quoted me out an engine they couldn't even get. So called AutoZone. AutoZone said the same thing was unavailable. They were supposed to call for availability. So ended up calling Jasper, and Jasper wanted almost, I think it was $7,200 or something for this engine. Looked online, it's about $3,000 for a junkyard one. And so I am just going to tear this thing apart and see if I could rebuild it in-house. I rebuild lots of motors here, but I usually do not rebuild weird stuff. I mean, it's yeah, not a common engine, not my thing. I have done a lot of this stuff, but didn't want to on this one. But for $3,000 or $4,000, I could probably certainly save some money on rebuilding this thing. So another thing I didn't think about, since it was seized up, we couldn't get the torque converter bolts out. You can't get the engine out with the torque converter inside the vehicle. So the whole suspension and everything had to be dropped down. The transmission had to be separated on the bench. So we're still, now I got to tear apart the motor to try to unseize it, to get this thing to rotate, to get the torque converter bolts out. And we have an endless amount of sensors on this thing. I know a lot of them don't matter, but I'm going to go through and engrave every sensor on where they go. That way, just in case, I can get the sensors back to where they belong, because there is an endless amount of them. And yeah, start tearing this thing apart and see what failed. No holes in the side of the block, no external visible damage. So I'm assuming just a rod bearing galled or spun, seized up. And that's why she won't turn over. So might have to replace a crankshaft, might have to replace some rods, but still better than spending $3,000 or $4,000 for a junkyard engine. Let's go. All right, so not off to a great start, but got a little bit tore down. So there was obviously standing water in this side of the head. So see what we end up doing with these camshafts. There looks like there was still oil down inside the journal, so that's good. This head looks good. And then, so I'm gonna have to flip it over. I'm not sure what they got going on here, but you could see that there's a bolt hole going up into the front cover. So I don't know if I should just take off these studs and then I could pop off the front cover, or flip it upside down and start taking off the oil pan and bed plate. So obviously not a very well maintained engine. Let's go a little bit further. I was wrong on that one. So do have to, that's a shit design, man. So you can see there's a bolt hole there, that's underneath the bed plate, and there's a bolt hole there, so that's inside. So to take off the front cover, you have to pull the oil pan, which is freaking insane. So for people who have to change timing, doesn't really make a difference to me, but kind of a weird design. And she gets worse. Yummy. So my guess is they were running this with water in the oil and it's clogged the pickup screen or just totally screwed the bearings. See if I can get that bed plate off there. So look at this. They actually have the pickup screen bolted to the front cover and the back side bolted to the windage tray. So in order to take the front cover off, you have to take the oil pan off to get the bed plate off, to get the oil pickup screen off, to get the front cover off. Thank God I didn't have to do a timing job on this. I'd rather rebuild the motor than frickin' do a timing job. I was worried that they had bolts going through the backside of the bell housing going into the bed plate. So if they did that and the motor was seized, at that point you're basically torching something off. You're gonna have to cut the torque converter, the flywheel up. You're gonna have to do something crazy in order to get this thing apart. See if I can get this front cover off here. So I just made a huge boo-boo. So I had this socket that I was taking the timing gears off with, 10 millimeter. And I came and I shoved it in here and I couldn't see anything because it's so freaking dark. I could not see that, but it fits super tight. And I put it on this guy here and stripped the shit out of it. So I got that one out. I can get the rest out, but that is going to be a freaking nightmare to get out. I don't know. Let's see if we can. So these are like a. Oh, I went and got another tool. Let's see. Where's it at? No, I wasn't. I was using the intact after the wrench. So there's my wrench. So I went and got a T55. See if that fit in there pretty well. So this is a 6-point. These are like a 12-point system. You could see it frickin' strip that clean. You can see it a little bit once it's clean. So, some type of a Torx. So I'll get the rest off and then figure out how terrible my life's gonna be getting that one out. That's why I couldn't see it. There's so much damn goo in this thing. Alright, I made that a whole lot harder than I had to. Drilled off the head of that one. Drilled off the head of that one. Couldn't get a good, couldn't find a good drill bit. Anyways, you think I'll have to clean that out before I put it back together, or you think it'll be fine? I'm starting to regret my decision. This thing was frickin' full of water. And it rusted the shit out of everything. There was like no oil in this bastard. Shit. All right, here's where I stop. That's a hell of a mess. So, the frickin' main bearings look really good. That's frickin' insane. So I've got all the mains off. I can't get that main off because it won't come up above this thing here. I've got several rod bearings out. A couple rods pushed down. I've got 2 rods left. That little sucker there. That little sucker there. I can still not get this to turn. So Gonna let that sit overnight. And I'm gonna go get the proper tool for the, that's not it, for the head bolts. So I don't screw up. I think I already screwed up one more of those, and I don't want to mess around with those anymore. Funny enough, I found it. Let's see if I can. Man, this is a mess. I need to clean up somewhere here. That is what they are, but it's bigger than this guy. This is the only one I had. So how many ever points that is? 12 or something like that. I'll go find a set of those when I get a chance. Not sure if I can find one on the weekend. And get the other head off. I'll get these pistons to start breaking through the rust. If I get that other head off, I could spray some PB blaster on that cylinder. Maybe get those honed out a little bit so I can knock these things out. And then this is the only place to access the flywheel bolts, which I was confused about because I didn't, once the bed plate and everything was there, it didn't look like there was much access, but obviously that's how it has to go. There's little piston squirters down in there. And rod bearings weren't bad either. Just frickin' rusted solid on the cylinders. Lots and lots of rust. So, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I'll get this thing torn apart. We'll get it in the vat. And we'll get all the parts ordered for it. And we'll probably bore and hone it, polish the crank, do a valve job, and slap this thing back together, figure out what we want to do with cams. All these parts will end up going into the sandblaster. I'll sandblast the crank, or glass bead. So I'll tape off all the journals, sandblast all that down, sandblast the rods, we'll resize those, check all my clearances, clean this frickin' mess, get everything lined out, put this bitch back together, get a new timing set, new oil pump. I don't know, I'll have to go through and see what all needs. Redo the heads. I don't know if, let's see if this flashlight does me any favors. So have to go through here, see if it needs valves. And obviously going to need surface. We'll probably go ahead and surface the block. Whew, that is one messy ass engine. So, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Follow along and we'll see you the next time.